All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome to FCC Foodies. I'm Barbara Camlett. Today, we're going to be making two things: stuffed portobello mushrooms and also a strawberry galette, which is dessert time. This is the season for strawberries coming up, and it's something different. Strawberries are made in the, baked in the oven, which enhances their flavor. So this is very good. And both of these recipes are very versatile because you can add, delete anything that you want. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, since the dough for the galette has to be in the refrigerator a little bit, I'm going to start making that, put it in the refrigerator, and then we'll work on the mushrooms. So I'm going to make the dough. I'm going to be using, well, my cord won't go any further than that. So I do have my Cuisinart over here. Or you could use a regular bowl, and I have a pastry cutter. If you want to cut in your butter, that's fine. You can use knives, 2 knives in the bowl, or you could, you don't want to really take your hand and squish it like you're making crumbs, because your hands are too warm and we want the butter cold. So, knives, a pastry cutter. There we go. We got a longer cord. Pastry cutter, that works. I'm going to use this, the Cuisinart. If you have a food processor, by all means, you can use that. All right, so the dough, nice and easy. It's 1.5 cups of flour. I already have that measured out. And it also calls for a little salt, and I did shake the salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt in here. So I'm going to put this into the bowl. And put my lid back on. Now the butter I have in the refrigerator, I will be putting the butter in, and you're going to pulse it or cut it up, and to make it like the size of like peas. Okay, I have the butter, the stick of butter already, sliced up, and right out of the freezer or refrigerator, whatever you want. And Nicole always sends these recipes to you. So I'm going to turn it on and drop these in. And as we can see here, it's about that the butter has gotten to about the size of peas. You don't want to go any more than that, because now we're going to work it some more, because I'm going to add the cold water. I have 6 tablespoons of cold water here. You could do the water, you can add ice cubes if you want. I had some cold water and put it in the refrigerator. And now I'm going to pour it in until all the dough comes together. It'll take a couple seconds, and it will form a ball in the bowl. And there it is starting. And as soon as it does that, I turn it off. I don't want to overwork my dough. And as you can see here, it all came together. So I'm going to take it out of here, take it off. And the dough is very soft. We don't want to handle it too much but get out all the pieces so we have it all. And form it into a ball. Get my plastic wrap. Put it in the plastic wrap. Now, to make it when it sits in the refrigerator, the butter will harden up. So in order for ease of rolling, what I like to do is before I wrap it or put it in the refrigerator, form it into a disc. So I'll just flatten it out. Try to keep the shape as round as you can, so it makes a nice round circle when we roll it out. Press it a little bit more. And that makes your rolling a lot easier. Okay. And I'm going to pop this in the refrigerator. It says have it in the refrigerator for an hour, or you could put it in the freezer for a short amount of time. So I'm going to, since we don't have an hour to let this thing in the refrigerator, I'm going to pop it into the freezer to, firm up the butter, let the dough rest, the flour and the gluten rest a little bit. Problem is finding room in the freezer. That's the hard part. All right, let me just get rid of this. Put this out of the way. Move this over here. Good. All right. Okay, so that's resting. Now we're going to move on to the stuffed mushrooms, because we don't want to work with anything once our dough is ready. Then we'll finish off with our strawberries. Okay. All right. Now the stuffed portobello mushrooms. They're regatta stuffed mushrooms with tomatoes and kale. Now, if you don't like kale, you don't want to use kale, use spinach. Anything that you like, you can substitute for these. Mushrooms are very easy, and this isn't a cooked on the stove. We just mix it together. We have the regatta, similar to when we make lasagna or stuffed manicotti. We just mix it all together. You can use any kind of vegetables you want. If you want roasted vegetables, that's where you get the different types of variety. So I have my baking dish here. And I have 4 portobello mushrooms. Now, if you need to make more, just increase your recipe size. Now, what I did is I took the mushrooms, I popped out the center of the stem, and I always wash them off because they are quite dirty and gritty. A lot of times you'll see they brush it off with a towel, or they have a mushroom brush, whatever you prefer. So I'm just going to lay that in there. Now these mushrooms here, you just give it a little tug and it comes out. Now I do save these because you could dice them up. If you wanted to, you could dice them up, saute them real quick, and then put them right into this recipe. That is fine. Again, you just pop out the center. Now they were already popped. They don't come out that easy. And you want to—
Barbara?
Yes.
It's Kat. I have a question. Do
Sure.
you ever get rid of the gills inside? Do you ever scrape them out?
I don't. I have seen recipes where they do take this, they look like gills out. I don't. So, you can if you want to, but I think it adds all to the flavor,
I just wondered if there was a reason why sometimes the recipe says get rid of them.
I don't know. I don't know why some recipes do. you know, it is part of the mushroom, and, you know, unless they just want a shell, but I don't. I just leave them in there. So here's, you know, what they're going to look like. So just nice and clean, and they're in the pan there. Now, you can, if you want, there is another recipe which I have just come across, which I am interested in trying, because my family loves a caprese salad, which is tomatoes, mozzarella, and basil. And, you know, you could slice that up, you mix it up, or, you know, however you want. It's a nice cold summer salad. And the recipe was, you take the cherry tomatoes and you slice them in half. Your little mozzarella balls, the pearls, that you could buy them in BJ's, the small ones, and basil leaves. And you just mix that together. And what they did is they took some crushed garlic and butter or olive oil, whatever you want, and they brushed the inside. They put that mixture of the basil, the mozzarella, and the tomatoes in here, and then they baked it. So it was a warm, and then they drizzled it with a balsamic vinegar. And I said, oh, now there's another thought. So I figured I must tell you that in case you like that caprese salad also, you know, with the mozzarella, the tomatoes, and the basil. And again, they brushed it with garlic. These we are not earning. I need help here.
I love that idea.
Yeah, and that's good, because we love that salad, especially when you have you know, fresh basil growing in the yard. Okay, so my mushrooms are prepared. I have my ricotta in the bowl. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I have my tomatoes and kale diced up already. I just want to show you. You can buy a whole big head of kale, which I like to do. Sometimes if, you know, I want to be quicker, you buy it, you know, in these little pieces chopped up. I find it doesn't last as long. It's not as fresh. But if you do, you have your stems on here. If you buy the big leaves, I always cut down the vein of the stem and then chop it. Or on this, I just go through it, pop those off. Pop off the stems, because, you know, they're hard, and then just run my knife through it. Go one way and then another, make it so it's not a big piece. And the same thing with my cherry tomatoes. I'll cut them in half, and then I'll just slice them into small pieces. I know they have some tomato cutters where you put a whole bunch on, you hold it down, or 2 lids. I just find it's quicker and easier for me to do, you know, just like that, to chop them. So in here, in my ricotta, I'm going to put in an egg. And that's going to help bind it all together. I have my egg. I'm just going to speed it up a little bit.
Is the ricotta like one of those just small containers?
Yes, yes. Okay. Yes, it's just a small container. And then, you know, it's a little bit extra, but I throw it in. I like them piled, you know, nice and high. So I'm going to pour my egg in. And then I have my cherry tomato. Let me get, you know what, let me give this egg a whisk into my ricotta first, get it all. There we go, I like to do that. And then I'm going to put my garlic powder, black pepper, oregano, or Italian seasonings in. So then I'm not crushing up my tomatoes. So it wants a ½ teaspoon of garlic powder. Yep, this is a new one here. I should have, I didn't think it had a, maybe I'll get that off, maybe not. We'll worry about that later. Okay, so I'm gonna do a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. I find that's a little bit better than the chopped garlic in here. Sometimes I like the powder. I'm not crazy over the salt, but the powder gives a nice flavor. Whatever you want, if you want Italian seasonings or oregano, that's up to you. I'm going to put in a little bit of both. But that's up to you, or whatever you have. I'll put a little bit of the oregano in. And some mixture of Italian seasonings, which also has a little bit of oregano in. So I'm just going to put a little of this in just to enhance the flavor of it. And of course, black pepper, a few grinds of black pepper. I like to grind my own, or if you just have it already ground, that is fine.
Does anybody want to take a guess how many species of mushrooms there are that are edible?
Ooh.
Take a guess.
Oh, let's say 30. How's that?
How many species of edible mushrooms are in the world?
In the world.
Did you say
Wow.
30?
I'll say 30.
30. There are 50,000 edible mushroom species in the world.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do see some on the hike. You know, Kat does point those out, yes.
Yes,
But
yes.
I think we did find one edible.
But on the flip side, do you know how many are poisonous?
No, probably more.
30.
Really?
30.
Only 30 are poisonous?
Yeah, I was kind of shocked. I thought there'd be a lot more, but yeah, there's only 30.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that. Now, we have our Parmesan cheese. You can use Parmesan, you can use Parmesan and Romano, or all Romano. It's, again, this is all up to your taste. So I'm going to add that in.
And 7 of those 30 are in Pennsylvania.
Well, you know, I'm not mushroom picking, so I'll trust the chaperone, right? But you know, the large number, and what are we used to? The portobellas, the baby bellas, the white mushrooms, maybe the shiitake, and the, you know, we're not real oyster mushrooms. We don't have a lot of choices, so gonna have to investigate that.
Yeah. Oh, and let's see. Just one more quick thing, and then I'll be quiet. So
Okay.
here are some of the names of the deadly mushrooms in Pennsylvania. We have the destroying angel, the death cap, the yellow stainer, and my favorite, fool's funnel.
Oh,
And the poison packs.
we should have pictures of those to take on our hikes to see if we identify any of them.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you would see them because some of them are really common. Okay, that's enough. Gloom and doom.
No, keep going. All right, so we have our ricotta in here, our egg. I'm going to put in our cherry tomatoes. And if you want red pepper, you can also put that in. Okay, our cherry tomatoes. I'm going to put in the kale. And again, spinach or any green that you would want. I have black pepper in there, garlic powder. We have oregano and Italian seasonings. Again, to your taste. Now I'm going to gently fold this around so I can not crush the tomatoes. Now, if you don't have cherry tomatoes and you have a regular tomato, dice that up. And if you don't want it real juicy, you know, you could take the seeds out to make it, you know, not as juicy, or after you cut it, you know, place it in a colander so it drains. So now I have this mixed up. And I'm going to stuff the mushrooms. And make sure you give them a nice big hunk. Just press it down so it gets inside. And fill them nice and full. Now I just buy the regular, you know, regatta. You can buy the whole milk or the part skim. You know, that is totally up to you. You know what you want. Okay, so they're now nice. There. Nicely mounded. So I have just a little filling left over because in the package they gave me a big one and a small one, a big one and a small one. If you had all large, or you can choose what you want, you would want the large ones because this is a nice supper. It could be a side dish or use it as your supper. So I'm going to put it in here, and this is a glass dish, and I'm just going to bake this in the oven along with the mushrooms. And if you want red pepper in here, you want roasted vegetables that you had made, you have leftover vegetables, that's what's nice about this. You can put anything in you want that you like. You could omit anything that's on here. Maybe you don't like kale. Try spinach, you know, chop up some spinach, or even frozen spinach. If you're going to do the frozen spinach, make sure you thaw it out and then squeeze it because it is very watery. All right, so let me get rid of this. All right, now I do have some tomato sauce, and that is optional. If you want to put the tomato sauce over top as it's cooking, I'm going to do that on 2 of them. I'm going to pour it right over. Or they could be just like, you know what, I'll do it on all of them, get rid of the tomato sauce. And just cook them as is, or you could put the tomato sauce on. When it comes out of the oven and they're nice and warm, if you wanted to sprinkle some mozzarella cheese over the top, again, they're all different options. Whatever you have, you can make. I'm going to put this in the oven, uncovered, and then just let it bake. And let's see, the baking time is 30 minutes. So hopefully, let's see, what time is it? Oh, it's almost 12 o'clock. So hopefully we'll be able to pull this out of the oven so you can see the finished product. So this is what it looks like when it's going in. And again, makes a nice side dish or a main meal. Okay, and I will put this extra in and we'll just eat it plain on the side. There we go. Okay, just wipe down the counter a second because I have to roll out my dough here for the strawberries. And like I said, don't throw your stems away. We could have sauteed them up and put them in the regatta. I have done that. Or you know, saute them up with however you want. Or if you don't want them, just put them in your compost pile. All right. Okay, on to our dessert. Now, wouldn't this make a nice light summer dinner? Nice light mushrooms and a nice strawberry dessert. Okay, I don't want make sure that's nice and dry so I can roll out the dough. All right, so before I get the dough out, let's, the oven temperature is at 375. Okay, so now for the filling, let's work on that a moment. I have 2 containers of strawberries. I have chopped them up, washed them off, took the holes off of them and chopped them up. And I added in here a 1/4 cup of sugar. Now, taste your berries. Some are very, very sweet as we get into strawberry season. And you might only need a 1/4 cup. They're a little tart yet. They smell good, but they're a little tart. So you have to add just maybe a little more sugar. Now, also for the filling, we're going to do strawberries. We have the sugar in here, and they want to have it sit for an hour because they want the juices to come out, because don't forget, this is going to bake. And if you put them in without rendering some of the juices, what happens is it's going to, flow all over your oven. So we're draining that. But we are going to reserve the juice, and I'll show you what we are going to do with that. Now, if you wind up, and then we have to we're going to mix strawberry jam and cornstarch together to thicken it. Cornstarch, it says 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. If you're using fresh strawberries that you went out in the field to pick, they are a lot juicier. When you bite into them, your mouth just floods with that delicious strawberry tasting juice. You might need to use more cornstarch. So think of the fruit you're working with, what time of the year it is, is it sweet? Do you need a little more sugar? Once you have it here, you can taste it, or after you mix in the jelly. And then are you dealing with, store-bought, farmer's market, or did you go out and pick them? See how juicy they are before you, only put in 2 tablespoons and it didn't, solidify for you. All right, so I have the strawberries here, and I have a colander here. This particular colander happens to have a base, so it'll catch the juice. So I'm going to pour this in here and drain the strawberries. I have some leftover in here. And as you can see, how much juice came out of the strawberries just sitting for an hour. So I'm gonna let that drain a second. Juice over here. Here I have 1/3 cup of strawberry jam. Make sure you get a good tasting strawberry jam. You don't want it, all sweet and everything. So if you get the preserves, and that it's a good quality, because you're going to get some flavor with this. It also sweetens, but helps enhance the flavor. I have my cornstarch, and I'm going to put it into the strawberry jam. You want a little bit of salt. Just going to put a little salt in. That enhances the flavor of the strawberries. Now I'm going to mix this up.
Let's start our next meal with dessert.
No, we're not starting our next meal with dessert. Now, if you find that this is getting a little thick, you can add a little bit, just a little bit of the strawberry juice to help loosen it up. Now, when I found this recipe, I said, I had to make it already. And it is very good. I'm gonna add a little more juice, just a little bit, because I can't take it out, but I can keep adding it because I am going to toss it in with my strawberries. And there we go. Okay, so now I have here my strawberry jam, just a dash of salt, and the cornstarch all mixed up together here. There we go.
My mute button didn't work, sorry.
Oh, uh-oh, what
I was
happened?
gonna give you a little fun fact about a galette.
Oh, okay.
So galette was originated in like Normandy, the northern France regions, and it means a free-form crust, and they can be savory. So some people would put like onions and beef in it. They also made another galette using a buckwheat flour, and it was like a pancake consistency, where they would also put in more savory items, and or people put vegetables in as well, depending on your liking.
Oh, yeah.
So you
Yeah,
can do it anything you want in it. And I know for French class, do we have any French class? No. I used to make them a galette and just put fruit in it, and that was it. And so it's a super duper quick recipe that you could make to impress your friends and family.
yeah, and it's you know, like I said, very, very easy. It's basically a pie. It's a pie crust, but instead it is, as Nicole said, free form. I have also made these in the fall when you don't want a great big pie. You make the crust apples. You know, you toss it with your cinnamon, your sugar, you put it in there and bake them, or you can make individual ones if you want. I also have a recipe for a peach one that is delicious. And that one is, you take cream cheese and there's a little bit of an almond extract, very, very little, and must be something else because the cream cheese is spreadable. And you put that on the bottom, and then you lay your peaches on top, a little sugar coating, some almonds, and you fold that over. That is another very delicious one. And like Nicole said, it could be sweet or savory. You can put roasted vegetables in. You know, I like that beef and onion, that sounds good. Or, you know, your onion and cheese, whatever you want. It could be an appetizer or a nice meal with a salad. All right, so now I'm going to add my strawberry jam mixture with the cornstarch into my strawberries. And then gently, gently, gently toss it. That's why one of the things I reserved the strawberry juice for, because you want it loose enough that you're able to just toss it around and coat your strawberries and not have to damage the strawberries in any way or bring more juice out of them because it's too thick. So here are the strawberries, and they are smelling good. And another thing I like when you go picking strawberries is just a regular strawberry pie. You bake the pie crust, you know, a blind baked pie crust, and then you crush up some strawberries, and then you, with cornstarch and everything, you make it thicker. You place all the strawberries around and you pile them up nice and high. You pour this over, put it in the refrigerator so it's a raw strawberry pie, and then top it with whipped cream. That is another delicious thing with strawberries coming up, because 'tis the season coming. Rhubarb's not out yet. I love rhubarb. I went looking for rhubarb. They told me I'm too early, but I was hoping it was out. All right, now that's the filling. Now, if you wanted to mix other fruit with it, that's fine. You don't like strawberries, you could do blueberries, anything you want. apples, peaches, a mixture, wild berries. Probably you could do strawberries and raspberries, or raspberries and blueberries, you know, whatever mixture you have. Now I'm going to get the dough out. Let me get a little bit of flour on the countertop. Let me feel. Let me make sure it's nice and dry, and I didn't get any strawberry juice on it. I'm going to dump a little flour on here so we're not sticking. Spread that around. All right, let me go find my disc of dough. Yes, and the freezer did the trick. It's nice and firm. Well, that proved quick. All right, so I have to use my muscles here. Okay, so I'm gonna try to form it back into a circle here. I'm gonna press with my hands just a little bit. Grab my rolling pin.
That's the same rolling pin you use on me?
Yeah, it's the same rolling pin I chase everything around the house with. And try to keep it in a circle here. Let me flour, I'm sticking a little bit. Let me flour my rolling pin. It froze it quite nicely. And I'm going to turn it. Only takes a minute or so for it to start warming up. But that'll, because it's so cold, that'll make the crust nice and flaky. Now, someone had said, and I have tried it, they put on, when they do the water, they add a teaspoon of sour cream, which is supposed to make the crust even flakier. I have tried that. So if you want to experiment with that.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Is that marble, that rolling pin? Because I have the same one.
Yes, yes, it is marble.
Very heavy. It makes it easy. I have a same one. Oh, cool. You don't need to push too hard. It's
Right, right. I am pushing hard here now because I just took that out of the freezer. Get some of this excess flour off. Push that out of the way. I don't want it all over here. You know, we don't want it on our dough. So it gives you a workout. Use those
yeah,
muscles.
I just said makes it easy because it's heavier, you know, to roll and stuff. I like mine so much.
Now we had it in the freezer, I think about a half hour from when we made it. If you're going to put it in the freezer, I wouldn't do any more than 20 minutes. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Nice.
It's not wanting to stay as round as I wanted it, but we want to make about a, what is it exactly calling for here? So I give you, they're saying about a 12-inch circle. I usually go a little bit more. So I know I have an area to fold over, and I don't care for a real thick dough. Because it was frozen, the edges didn't roll out as nice, so it's not as nice of a circle I would want. So like I said, if you're going to stick it in the freezer to chill it, 20 minutes tops, I would say. 'Cause, 'cause it was frozen, it didn't, the edges didn't roll out as nice, so it's not as nice of a circle I would want. So like I said, if you're going to stick it in the freezer to chill it, 20 minutes tops, I would say. 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 20 minutes But if the edges are ragged, it'll still taste as good. All right. Now I have a large pie pan that I'm going to put it on. If you have a big baking sheet, make sure there is some kind of a lip onto it, just in case it doesn't run out. Every once in a while, you know, there's a little juice that escapes. Okay, so I'm gonna put the dough on my pie pan. This reminds me of making homemade pizza, which I love to do as well. Maybe that could be a class.
Yeah.
Brush off any excess flour. Just there we go. All right. Okay, now I'm going to take my strawberries and I'm going to place them right into the center. And I like a lot of fruit, so I like it mounded, so I have a little fruit with my crust. Now, reason I pile it right in the center is because then I can control how close I get to the edge. We need about a 2-inch border around it, so we can fold up our dough. So we want to spread it out. And this is a rustic dessert, so it doesn't have to be exactly round. You want to make it square, go ahead. But you want to make sure you give yourself that edge so you can fold it over. And that looks about even. And what I'm going to do is bring up my dough, bring it up, and then just keep bringing it up, and it's going to pleat, okay? Because don't forget, my circumference out there is larger than what I'm bringing in. So as you bring it up, you just pleat it and pinch it to the one next to it, the next piece of dough. Let's see, can you see here? I'm just bringing it up and over. And you want to make sure, you know, that they are closed, because that would be a point that the juices could escape from. I'm just pinching it and shaping it into a circle. And then I give it a little help by just spinning my pan and making it somewhat of a circle. And it is, yeah, there we go. So we have our fruit exposed and we have our crust on the side, and you didn't have to worry about blind baking a pan or trying to fit it into a pan. All right, and they are asking, just to give it that little shine and crunch, to take a tablespoon of sugar. Let's see, making sure that that's exactly what they want. Yes, plus a tablespoon, because the recipe is asking for a 1/4 cup of sugar plus 1 tablespoon, and that would be separate. So I'm just going to sprinkle around on the top a little bit of sugar. It's going to give a nice little crunch and a little added sweetness. Then I'm going to take the pastry brush, and I have my strawberry juice, and I'm going to brush the juice on my crust, just a little. We don't want to make it soggy, but this will help brown it and give a little bit of a flavor of the strawberries to our crust. Instead of an egg wash, we're doing a strawberry juice wash. Now, once this bakes, once your crust is nice and brown, your fruit is very, very bubbly. So, and you'll see the juices, but as it cools and sets, the cornstarch will tighten that up for you. Great served with whipped cream, ice cream, or just plain with a nice cup of coffee. All right.
Barbara,
Yes.
when you use apples in the fall, what do you use for the juice?
I just do an egg wash, or it depends on what type of apples you're using. If you're using like a Granny Smith, sometime I will saute them in the pan with butter and brown sugar and cinnamon. And then it gives you like that little syrupy stuff. You can brush it with that. I also brush with half and half rather than cracking an egg open and then wasting it. I will baste it with half and half. But now this particular recipe, you know, because we do have the juice, they are basting it with that.
When you mix the apples, though, do you use an apple jelly?
No, when I do the apples, I just, I use, depends on what apples I'm using. If I'm using Macintosh, I always use a combination of apples. Macintosh has a tendency of, you know, going into applesauce, but the flavor is excellent. So I'll use, when I go to the farm stand, whatever they have that's a baking apple, I will get like 3 varieties, and that's how I make my apple crisp or the pies with. I'll cut them up in a bowl, and I will make, and just toss them with lemon, you know, some flour or cornstarch, brown sugar, and cinnamon, and then I put them right in here raw, like you would a pie. If I'm using Granny Smith, sometimes they're a little hard or tart. I will saute them in a pan with some butter to get them soft, and then put the brown sugar and cinnamon in, and then that makes a syrup. So, you know, that creates, you know, it itself. So it depends on, you know, what type of fruit you're doing. When I do the one with the peaches, I have made it with canned peaches. You know, this year I want to make it with the fresh, and that didn't really have a juice because the bottom was covered with cream cheese with a little almond extract. You know, you lay your peaches out very nicely, you know, in a nice design, top them with some shredded slivered almonds or almond slices, and then just bake it, maybe just a little sugar on top. But this is, you know, what it looks like. And then we put it into the oven. Now, the recipe is calling to bake it for about 50 minutes. You know your oven, so check that. The first time, actually, this is the 3rd time I'm making this, believe it or not, because I tried it and we liked it, and then I wanted to make sure, you know, that the recipe was good. The first time it said to bake it an hour, and I did. And we determined that the crust was too well done. It was, you know, like hard to cut. It wasn't burnt, but it was too crisp. So I reduced it to 15 minutes the next time, and it was nice and pliable. But that's up to you. You know your oven, whether I'm using electric, if you're using gas or a coal stove, whatever you're using to bake, you know, that you would have to adjust. And I would keep watching it. I usually, you know, in a case like this, I would set my timer for 30 minutes, just turn the light on and peek, making sure everything is working correctly, it's bubbling, and then probably set it for another 15 and start checking it every 5 minutes for, you know, 45 on to, you know, the crust is nice. And then when you touch it, you know that the crust is done. It is not raw. So those were our recipes for today. I'm going to go peek in the oven and see what is happening with the portobellos. And let me bring them over and show you what they look like so far. They look like they're almost done. And then when that comes out, I will put this in and bake it. And they smell delicious. So here is what they look like. I'll probably give these another 10 minutes to go and then take them out of the oven. And Bernie gets to eat this for lunch. And again, if you want to pop on, once they're, out of the oven, some mozzarella cheese in order to, decorate them, that would be fine. And I'll set the timer for 10 minutes. And then I'll change that. Good, okay, so our stuffed portobello mushrooms. Remember, anything you want in them. Another way, with your mushrooms is you could saute onions, the extra mushrooms, the stems, with breadcrumbs, garlic, onions. You could stuff it, you could put crab meat in there. There's so many things that you can stuff these with. Or your roasted vegetables, that is very good. Or even I have seen them take the portobello mushrooms and use some ground meat in it, or make like a little meatloaf or turkey meatloaf and put it in and bake it. These basic mushroom cups are great for anything. So, use your imagination, and they're very healthy for you. And again, with your strawberry galette, any type of fruit you want, and it is nice and easy. It bakes up, whipped cream, ice cream, enjoy. Great for the summer. The next Foodies will be on Tuesday, April 27th. All right, does anyone have any questions? Any questions? I hope you get to, yes, Nicole. You have your hand up?
1 second.